Chapter 10. What the instrument found. In 1977, Voyager 1 was launched from Cape Canaveral on a trajectory calculated to take it past Jupiter, Saturn, and eventually out of the solar system entirely. 13 years later, at the request of Carl Sagan, the spacecraft's camera was turned back toward the inner solar system for a final photograph. The image shows a pale blue dot suspended in a band of scattered sunlight. The dot is Earth. From 6 billion kilometers away, everything that has ever happened in human history occupies less than a single pixel. The photograph did not change any of the facts about Earth. The wars, the achievements, the suffering, the love, none of it was altered by being seen from outside. What changed was the frame. The view from outside revealed a structure that was invisible from inside. The smallness of the whole relative to the space it inhabits, the isolation of the pale dot in the darkness, the contingency of everything that seemed, from inside, to be the necessary furniture of reality. A meta-analysis is the pale blue dot photograph of a corpus. The individual analyses of the 46 texts, the Minto pyramid structures, the scope and category operations, identifications, the model logical cards pillar were performed from inside each text. Each analysis asked, what is this text doing? What is its governing question, its central claim, its logical architecture? The analysis was rigorous. It was also necessarily local. It could see the tree. It could not see the forest. The meta-analysis turned the camera around. What it found was not what an unsystematic reading of the corpus would predict. A reader who moves through the 46 texts in sequence accumulates a sense of thematic consistency. They are all, obviously, about the same thing, but thematic consistency is a low-level observation. What the meta-analysis found was structural consistency at a level that thematic reading cannot access. The same logical architecture, the same sequence of operations, the same master category operation, running beneath texts that differ enormously in style, period, authorship, and surface content. This is what an instrument reveals that ordinary reading does not. Not what the texts say, what the texts do. The Minto pyramid analysis of the corpus begins with the SCQA complication, structure question, answer situation that Shankara's texts share at the governing level. The situation is consistent across every text in the corpus. There is a human organism that experiences suffering, limitation, and the fear of death. This is not a philosophical position. It is a reported fact. The texts do not argue that suffering exists. They take it as the starting point. The complication is equally consistent. The suffering is not caused by the circumstances of the human organism's life. It is caused by a misidentification. The organism takes itself to be a finite, bounded, mortal entity. This misidentification is the root error. Every other form of suffering is downstream of it. The question follows, what is the correct identification? If I am the body-mind is wrong, what is right? Answer, and this is where the meta-analysis finds its first structural surprise, is not given as a proposition. In every text, at every level of sophistication, the answer is given as an operation, not you are Brahman as a fact to be accepted. Perform this procedure and you will find what you are. The corpus's answer to its governing question is always a set of instructions, not a set of propositions. This is the master SCQA. It runs beneath all 46 texts. The individual texts are different deployments of the same governing structure, calibrated for different students at different stages. The 6 universal logical pillars identified by the meta-analysis are the load-bearing elements of the corpus's argument. Every text in the corpus uses at least 3 of them. The texts that deploy all 6 are the Phase 2 texts, the Vivekachudamani, the Upaja Sahasri, the Panchadashi. The first pillar is the superimposition argument. The current state of confusion, the misidentification of self with not self, is not a neutral state of ignorance. It is an active superimposition. Something is being projected onto something else. The rope is being mistaken for a snake. The error is not just the absence of correct perception. It is the presence of incorrect perception. The pillar does 2 things simultaneously. It establishes that the error is removable because it is a superimposition, not a constitutive feature of reality, and it explains why it persists, because superimpositions feel real from inside. The person who sees a snake in the dark is genuinely afraid, and no amount of argument about the absence of snakes resolves the fear until the actual nature of the rope is seen. The second pillar is the witness argument. There must be a witness of the confusion. If you are confused, something is aware of the confusion. That something is not itself confused. The confusion is its object, not its nature. The witness of the misidentification is not misidentified. Locate the witness and you have already stepped outside the confusion. The pillar is the phase 1 operation, stated as a logical necessity rather than a phenomenological instruction. The third pillar is the invariance argument. The self must be that which does not change across the 3 states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Everything else changes, the objects perceived, the thoughts generated, the emotions present. What is invariant across all 3 states is the awareness in which they appear. The pillar names the target of the investigation before the investigation has been performed. Look for what does not change. That is what you are. The fourth pillar is the self-luminosity argument. The self cannot be an object of knowledge because all knowledge requires a knower, and the knower cannot be known by a further knower without generating an infinite regress. The regress terminates in a self-luminous awareness that knows itself not by being an object to a subject, but by being the subject that is constitutively prior to the subject-object structure. The Kena Upanishad's epistemological trap, formalized as a logical pillar. The fifth pillar is the non-difference argument. The individual witness awareness and Brahman, the ground of all reality, cannot be different in substance. If they were different, one would be limited by Brahman's the other, definition as which contradicts unlimited. If the individual awareness were part of Brahman, Brahman would be divisible, which contradicts its definition as undivided. The only coherent relationship between individual awareness and Brahman is identity. Tat Tvamasi is not a metaphor. It is the logical conclusion of the non-difference pillar. The sixth pillar is the pedagogical necessity argument. The teaching must be given in stages because the student's current cognitive position makes the full conclusion inaccessible before preparation. This is the pillar that justifies the entire Phase 1 and Phase 2 apparatus. Not a weakness in the system, an acknowledgement that the system is dealing with a real student in a real epistemic situation, not an ideal knower who can receive the complete teaching in a single transmission. The pillar makes the curriculum's existence philosophically mandatory rather than merely practical. 6 pillars. Every text in the corpus is a different arrangement of the same 6 supports. The scope and category operations, the analytical tagging system that tracks how each text moves through logical space, reveal a pattern that the 6-pillar analysis does not. The S-down arrow operation, scope contraction, narrowing the identity claim, and the C-right arrow operation, category reassignment, reclassifying an entity from one ontological category to another, are the 2 operations that appear in every text without exception. Not as a finding that required statistical analysis, as a structural necessity, the corpus's governing task is to move the student's self-identification from the category finite, conditioned body-mind to the category self-luminous, undivided awareness. Every text is performing some version of this reclassification. Every text is narrowing the scope of identity claims in order to find the substrate from which all claims are made. What the operation-level analysis reveals is the sequencing logic. Phase 1 texts perform S-down arrow and C-right arrow at the level of vocabulary. They install the categories required for the reclassification without performing the reclassification fully. Phase 2 texts perform the reclassification with maximum force. They complete the C-right arrow move that Phase 1 prepared. The radical texts perform what the tagging system identifies as C-right arrow in reverse. Having reclassified the student from body-mind to awareness, they then dissolve the category of awareness as distinct thing to leave only the undivided ground that was always already present. Install the category, perform the reclassification, dissolve the category, 3 moves, 46 texts, every text one of those moves or a combination of them. Here is what the meta-analysis found that was not predicted before it was performed. The corpus is not a curriculum with a start and an end. It is a recursion. A student who works through the 46 texts correctly and reaches the recognition described in the Upanishads will, if they return to the Tattva Bodha afterward, find a different text, not different words, a different operation. The Tattva Bodha, read after the recognition, is not vocabulary installation. It is the recognition looking at its own earliest expression. The categories that the Tattva Bodha installs, gross body, subtle body, causal body, food sheath, vital sheath, mental sheath, are not scaffolding anymore. They are the architecture of Maya, seen clearly, from outside the confusion that made them feel like the architecture of the self. The corpus is designed to be traversed twice. The first traversal builds the instrument. The second traversal uses the instrument to see what the instrument was pointing at all along, not a different corpus. The same corpus, a different reader. This is the invariant, not the doctrine of non-duality. That is the content, not the specific texts. Those are the vehicles. The invariant is the structural feature that makes the corpus a recursive system rather than a linear curriculum. It changes what it says to you based on where you are when you read it, while saying exactly the same words. No text in the Western philosophical tradition does this. No theological corpus in the Abrahamic traditions does this. Advaita Vedanta corpus is on the evidence of the meta-analysis, unique in its construction of a self-modifying reading experience, a body of text whose operation on the reader is a function of the reader's state, not merely the text's content. 46 texts, one invariant. The invariant is the structure that dissolves itself in the mind that has used it correctly. The meta-analysis also found something it was not built to find, and intellectual honesty requires stating it. It found its own limit. The 6 logical pillars are correct identifications. The master SCQA is a genuine structural feature of the corpus. The operation-level analysis accurately maps how each text moves through logical space. All of this is real. The instrument was well built, and it returned valid results, and the results describe something that the description cannot produce. The meta-analysis can tell you that the DRG Drishya Viveka performs the S-down arrow operation at the highest precision of any phase 1 text. It cannot perform the S-down arrow operation on you. The meta-analysis can identify the 6 logical pillars that justify every move in the phase 2 texts. It cannot make the moves. The meta-analysis can name the invariant, the self-dissolving structure, with precision. It cannot dissolve itself. This is not a failure of the meta-analysis. It is its honest acknowledgement of what kind of instrument it is. A map of the territory is not the territory. A structural analysis of a surgical procedure is not the surgery. The meta-analysis is the view from 6 billion kilometers. The pale blue dot is real, and the photograph is accurate, and the view reveals things that cannot be seen from inside. But you have to go back. You have to return to the dot and stand on the ground and pick up the actual instruments and perform the actual operations. The view from outside is orientation. The work is done from inside. The meta-analysis ends where the corpus begins, with a student sitting near a teacher at the point where the next sentence might be the one that changes everything. Part 7. The 2 Pillars.